that. Today is Tuesday, September 7th. It is 7:04 p.m., and this is the Personnel Administrative Affairs Committee meeting. I will ask to access Zoom, please refer to the agenda or the city's website for the meeting link. So I will ask our clerk, Alderwoman Kelly, to call the roll.
Thank you. Alderman Karen.
Here.
Alderman Clemens. Alderman Lopez.
Here.
Alderman at large Shoshana Kelly's here. Alderman Cleaver.
I'm present via Zoom. Thank you.
You can hear us. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's
Roll call.
That's roll
Okay,
call. You're
so
good.
we have a quorum. Thank you. Okay, and I don't see anyone in the chamber, so it looks like we have no public comment unless there's someone online. Oh,
Someone just walked in the
okay, it
Zoom
looks
door.
like Alderman Clements has just joined us.
He's connecting the audio. We'll give him a second.
Okay. Okay. We're waiting for Alderman Clemens to get on board.
He's struggling.
Aren't we always?
Yes. Okay,
It's been a night.
okay.
So I don't see any public on the.
No. So no
We're okay
public
there.
comment.
And
Okay,
while we're waiting for Alderman Clemens, I guess we could talk about.
yeah,
the next
let's do the communications.
We have a communication from Alderman Liu, but I believe we were going to ask to take him out of order so that she could join us at the later end of the meeting.
Right,
Um,
okay. So we have no interviews,
correct.
okay? Application to license hawkers, peddlers, vendors licenses?
None.
None, okay. Appointments by the Board of Aldermen and the mayor.
Yeah, I'd like to move to recommend confirmation of the following appointments from alternate to member to the Historic District Commission. William Slavinsky with a term to expire.
Slavinsky.
Slavinsky, was close. With a term to expire June 30th, 2022. And the following reappointments to the Zoning Board of Adjustment. Jean-Paul Boucher and Rob Shea Booth with terms to expire September 11th, 2024.
Okay, it's Rob Shaw.
What did I say?
You said
Rob
Rob Shaw Booth. He'd like that. Okay, all right, do we have any questions or concerns from members of the committee? Okay, seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Karen.
Yes.
Alderman Clemens.
Yes.
Shall we note that you are here via Zoom and you can hear us? Since
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly is a yes. Alderman Cleaver.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. Okay, unfinished business.
There's none.
Okay, new business resolutions.
I think we switched roles. None.
Okay, new business ordinances.
None.
Okay. And Alderwoman Kelly, you have a motion?
My motion is to remove from the table ordinance 021-067.
Okay. By roll call?
By roll call. Alderman Karen.
Yes.
Alderman Clemens.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly is a yes. Alderman Cleaver.
Yes.
You have 5 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay. So ordinance 0-21-067 is recognizing Juneteenth as a city holiday and revising the holiday section of the unaffiliated employees' personnel policies. Alderman Kelly?
I'll make a motion for final passage.
Okay. So you heard the motion for final passage. Do we have any questions or concerns from the committee? Alderman Lopez.
We tabled this originally just because we were waiting for feedback from the city about whether we could add a holiday, like for employees, unaffiliated employees.
Right, the Budget Review Committee recommended, okay with that, with that addition of that holiday.
Okay, I figured we didn't exactly have a lot of wiggle room since it's a federal holiday, so.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, Director Kleiner, can you hear me?
Yes, Madam Chair, I can.
Okay, so I have a question for you concerning this. Will this particular holiday take another holiday out of the lineup, or is this an additional holiday? I know you have, I think, don't you, I'm sorry, I think you have like 2 holidays that the mayor can add to the schedule. Is that what this would do, take one of those dates?
My understanding is the legislation adds this as an additional holiday, but you are correct, Madam Chair. The plan does exist now, has 2 floating holidays,
Okay, all right.
which is commonly used for the day after Thanksgiving and another day that the UAW union has.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. Okay, that was my only question. So are we ready for a vote on O-21-067? Okay, Madam Clerk?
Alderman Karen.
Yes.
Alderman Clements.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes,
Alderwoman Kelly is a yes. Alderman Cleaver.
Yes.
5 yeas.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, so, I'm not taking anything else off the table, so I think we'll go back to, the communication. Alderwoman Kelly?
Okay, the communication is from Alderwoman Lou regarding request for quarterly schedule of upcoming contract renewals.
Okay, so, Alderwoman Lou is still at a meeting, but I told her we would, try to take it up at the end, but wouldn't hold up the time. Does all the committee members have a copy of the letter?
I do.
Yes, I have it.
Okay, okay. So what I did was I reached out to Director Kleiner today to ask her if she would come in and speak to us concerning the letter of request from Alderman Lou. And for those of you who don't know what it's about, it's concerning the renewal of contracts that are up for expiration and to be renewed or something new. She is looking that contracts, list of contracts be sent to the Board of Aldermen at least 3 months before they come to, I think it's basically finance, so that they have an idea of what's coming up and aldermen can review the contracts if they so desired. So, am I right, Director Kleiner? I think that's, okay. So would you like to speak on this? I have some, I'll tell the committee I have some concerns as to why we need to do this. I've never seen that before, that we had to put lists of contracts. Some of them can be very long, but if they're a renewal, unless there's some major changes, I would think that our purchasing department and division directors would be up on that, be able to explain that to members of the Finance or Budget Committee. So I will turn over the speaker to you, Director Kleiner.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members of the committee. So we do have a number of concerns. The first of all being our limited staff at City Hall. If we were to undertake such a process, this would be completely manual and would require a lot of staff time. There is no electronic way of putting together such a list. The other concern is we are constantly in negotiation and working on contracts, generally right up until the week before we need to submit them to the finance committee. So things can easily change if we're not getting the pricing that works on behalf of the city, if we're not getting the terms and conditions. We have quite a lengthy approval process before it even gets to the finance committee. For example, the contract has to go through the risk department and be reviewed for insurance language. The contract has to go through the legal department and be reviewed for terms and conditions. It's reviewed by the director of whatever division is overseeing the contract, and it's reviewed by our purchasing department at length. Any one of these parts of this process could change. So while we understand Alderwoman Liu's concern about not being able to research, we are, as staff, are there should any alderman have any questions once it hits the finance committee. We always make ourselves available to answer questions and concerns about a contract. And if need be, the finance committee could table the item until the next meeting if there were concerns. But to put together a list of quarterly contracts is asking a lot of staff time, and quite frankly, it could change from moment to moment.
Alderman Lopez, you had a question to me earlier.
Uh-huh.
Would you like to speak?
I can't remember the question that I asked you earlier. I had a different question.
Okay, go ahead. You can ask that one. I remembered what.
I think you said speak up.
Speak up, Alderman Lopez.
Okay. No problem. Director Kleiner, if I can ask through the chair.
Yes, you may.
It's difficult to compile a list. What was requested is the contracts that are expected to expire, not the full list of contracts that are anticipated ever needing. And while I understand there isn't currently an electronic database of all of those in one place, is it possible to maybe start just putting it on a calendar, and instead of doing all the research for aldermen, just listing the contracts and the numbers that if they felt like they needed to look into something, they would expire at some point and we would be alerted to that fact?
If I may, Madam Chair,
You may.
again, this would be an entirely manual process. There's no system that is going to, electronic system that is going to complete this for our staff. Most of the annual contracts that you see are laid out in our budget. So they're annually renewed, and I'll give an example. For our IT department, you'll see Infor and Kronos, two of our software systems, and most recently, those came before the finance committee. If you looked, those are at the same time, generally right after our fiscal year begins. So you'll commonly see those contracts right at that time. We could put together a list of annual contracts. Again, I'm gonna, caution that those could change. And I wouldn't want to be held to anything because it's our practice to always find the best solution at the best reasonable cost for the city. But those are two that I could see that wouldn't normally change since there are software that we currently use. We could do that, but the annual contracts, those are all listed in the budget. And when the budget comes before you, large items like that are generally discussed.
Alderman Lopez?
So I'm thinking, at least from what I'm hearing from Director Kleiner, that the actual letter and the request isn't particularly feasible for city staff to now have all contracts ready this far in advance as of any time soon. But maybe a compromise could be when we're taking the minutes from the finance committee or the boards that are approving contracts, they could have a receptacle, like a calendar they're supposed to put those in for when they expire. Not when they're due to be renegotiated or discussed or anything like that, but just the expiration date as a list, which isn't something that we would expect to be available now, but maybe in even a year or 2 years after an actual legislative session where we are entering them in.
Okay. Did you understand that, Director Kleiner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I did. So I think what Alderman Lopez is suggesting is that we make a list starting with the maybe fiscal 21, or excuse me, fiscal 22, and we make a list of all the contracts that have come to finance and their expiration dates.
Is that true, Alderman Lopez? Is that what you were?
As in a rolling process rather than a big giant project.
Okay, all right.
Is that gonna add more work?
I don't know. Everything can add more work,
Yeah.
Alderman Lopez. Does any other committee member have a question? Oh, Alderman Clemmons.
Actually, if I could, I believe Alderman Cleaver had his hand up before me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Cleaver? Thank you,
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say that I think the way it is right now, the way it has worked is great, it's fine, and if there are questions, we can always attend the Finance Committee meetings and then get explanations through that means. I don't see the value of advance notice as requested.
Thank you. Okay, Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you very much. Along the same lines as what Alderman Cleaver was saying, I was on the Finance Committee for 6 years, and the list of the contracts is the bi-weekly agenda that comes out. And the review of them is done by the Finance Committee. So we have a practice in place right now that reviews all of these contracts, and ones that are over, I believe the ones that are over $25,000 come to the Finance Committee for review. If they're over $1 million, they come to the Finance Committee and then get forwarded to the full Board of Aldermen. So I guess the only thing that I would say is, these things are available. They're available now. They come out with the agenda every Friday, and we should be looking at these to interrupt the process of negotiation and what the purchasing manager does and the risk manager and things like that, and to get into the weeds of the different negotiating or the needs of the department. That's not our responsibility here on the Board of Aldermen. Our responsibility on the Board of Aldermen, and particularly on the Finance Committee, is to make sure that the funds that we are spending are there. We hire employees, and we hire a purchasing manager, and we hire the division heads to make sure that they're spending the money within the guidelines set forth by the aldermen in the budget. And the role of the Finance Committee is to make sure that they're adhering to that, and to make sure that when we're spending money out of an account, the money's there. So, to the degree of looking at a contract, I mean, you can look at it, but ultimately, I would hate to see this board or the Finance Committee get into the negotiations or basically the fine details of what's going on, because that would be, in my opinion, heavy-handed, and it would slow down a lot of the work that the city has to get done. So while I understand the need for, or the want for, to know what's coming down the pike, really the best place for that is the finance committee itself, and to look at those agendas on the Fridays that they come out, and review them. I did that for 6 years. It's a tough job. It's a very, it can be time consuming, but it's what we're elected to do, and we have a process to do it. So that would be my suggestion.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, so Alderman Lou is finally here. So Alderman Lou, we waited, but we started our conversation, so maybe what I'd have you do is explain to the committee as to why you're asking for this.
Okay.
And then I have a question to the director. Director Klein was here, and she's already spoken, but to give the committee members your reason as to why you would like
Sure.
this done.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The reason I want it done, I think that, I don't think, well, I asked because it would help to, I feel it would help anyone, particularly the members of the Finance Committee, to gauge their upcoming time, their time obligation. Some of the, I disagree with Alderman Clemens that we shouldn't be looking at this. I think that every one of us should look at what we feel we should look at. And I don't think, I don't understand why anyone would vote against a simple, listing of upcoming contracts. Not the contracts themselves, but I just think it would make the job on the Finance Committee more reasonable.
Okay, anything
That's all.
else?
No.
Okay, so since you weren't here, Director Kleiner, would you be willing to repeat part of the concerns that you expressed to the committee a few minutes ago, so that Alderman Lou could understand it, and why you didn't hear all the committee members' questions? Could you do that?
Certainly, Madam Chair, I'd be happy to. So again, one of our major concerns is that there is no electronic system to put together a list such as this. All this would have to be put together manually by our admins or by staff that works on these contracts. Again, our contracts go through a process. So there may be contracts in the works that are going through the process, starting with the division director. They're reviewed by risk. So they have to go and have an insurance review. They have to go and they have to be reviewed by legal. And they may be in that step of the process. And then they're also either at the same time or directly after that, reviewed by our purchasing manager in the purchasing department. So there's several steps before a contract even gets to finance. That contract at any step of that process could have to be returned to the vendor, could have to be renegotiated. So this takes a while, and there's not one common denominator that says when this contract will then get in front of finance. Purchasing may or may not know about them until they reach that step of the process. So if you were looking at a list of annual contracts that we know are going to come before you, they're also included in the budget, so we could discuss them at the annual budget time. That would be one thing, but to list all the contracts that may come before you in the next 3 months would be extremely difficult and very time consuming.
So, okay. Any other questions from committee members? Okay, Alderman Lopez.
Yeah, not to belabor the point, but again, the recommendation or suggestion that I had was not to have the list ready, but to start tagging the lists as we approve contracts of when they're going to expire, because you could use that as creating an electronic mechanism, and focusing only on the ones that they're expiring. It doesn't necessarily have full bearing or commitment on how they're going to be renewed, whether we're switching the contracts with someone else or anything like that, but at least it would be sort of a heads up that this is likely to be a topic discussed.
Okay. Okay. Do you understand, Alderwoman Lou, do you understand what Alderman Lopez's suggestion?
I believe so. I think he's saying do it proactively when so do it as an individually, as an alderman, when I approve keep my own list, basically.
No,
No,
I was saying
no.
when the committee approves a contract, city clerk or the aldermanic assistant or somebody could be keeping a central list of when those are going to expire. And we may not have the list like right away, but after a year or two, we will have a pretty reasonable list of at least when they're expiring.
Yep.
Especially
it now.
those that are continuing, because a lot of these contracts are in your budget because they're a constant. You know, the negotiations may change, but the company and the amount probably doesn't change as often. So one of the questions that Alderman Lopez had asked earlier was, does this committee have the power to tell you that this is what we want done? Do we have to do this legislatively, or is this something that we can request to, I would think, purchasing department? Remember that question, Alderman Lopez?
Yeah, it was better stated the way you did it.
Okay. So I guess I'm directing that to you, Director Kleiner, and I'm not sure if you can answer it or need to get an answer back to us, but.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I would hope that we could work through this process. I would be happy to speak with Ms. Parkinson, our purchasing manager, and get an idea. And I'd like to think that we could find a solution that would work for all of us.
Okay. Did you have a question? Alderman Cleaver. Alderman Cleaver, you're on mute.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I didn't have any additional questions.
Oh, you didn't, your hand was up. You're waving.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, the clerk is all mixed up.
Oh, it's my fault.
I didn't put my hand up
You
the
didn't.
second time.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Alderwoman Lou.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify or correct, Ms. Director Kleiner's response suggested that I was looking, that I was looking for a list of what would come before us. And I understand how uncertain that could be. I assumed that there would be a simple way, and I'm surprised if it isn't done, but a simple way to, track ongoing, regularly maintained contracts and their expiration date. That's all I would, that's all I would ever expect or ask. I wouldn't ask for what's coming before us quarterly. But it's just a quarterly report. But if it's not,
Okay, so here would be my suggestion. Director Kleiner could work with purchasing and with the suggestion from Alderman Lopez about putting some kind of list together. Now, this isn't going to happen in the next month or so, but do something so that it makes it simpler for people to look at. Something's coming up down the pike, and if you want to go and look at that contract, you can. You're not part of the negotiations, but I think that might be a compromise. Trying to make it as simple as possible, but make it easy for aldermen to be able to find it if they have something in front of them quarterly. But I would, if we do that, then we would have to table this piece of communication till next month. Any comments or concerns from the committee members? Alderman Lopez.
Wouldn't we just accept the communication but then not make the motion for the request?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Couldn't we just accept the communication and put it on file, but then not make a motion for a request?
Yeah, we probably could. Alderwoman Kelly, you had a question?
I was just gonna weigh in. I was just gonna say that if Alderman Lou is open to the suggestion by Alderman Lopez, it seems like it's a fairly reasonable way of building this up without putting an undue amount of administrative work on Director Kleiner's team.
Any other committee members? Okay, so Director Kleiner, is this something that you could look at and work something, and we'll just put this communication, accept it and put it on file, and then Alderman Lou, when Director Kleiner has something, maybe you could put a letter back to the Personnel Committee with the suggestions that you've made and Alderman Lopez have
Okay.
made. Does that work for you?
you'd like me to just provide another communication that
Yeah, you could do that
modifies
in
the
conjunction
request?
with Director Kleiner, after
Sure.
she's worked up
Yep, thank you.
whatever we can do. Does that work for you?
Yes.
Okay. Director Kleiner, does that work for you?
Absolutely. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. So then I will direct the clerk.
So shall we make the motion to accept the communication and place it on file?
Yes, please.
Great. I don't see anyone wanting to discuss it, so Alderman Karen,
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons,
Yes.
Alderman Lopez,
Yes?
Alderman Kelly says yes, Alderman Cleaver.
Yes,
You have 5 yeas and 0 nays.
Okay. So hopefully that will work out. We'll have some answers, and I appreciate Director Kleiner for coming in, and Alderman Lou, I was glad you were able to get in on the conversation.
Thank you.
Okay, so I don't see anyone in the public, but is there someone online that wants to speak?
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, so no public comment. General discussion from anyone? Okay, remarks from the alderman? Nice to be, Alderman Lopez, are you going to thank us for locking you out?
Of course. So this Sunday is the Cultural Connections Committee's Cultural Festival. It's at Greeley Park on Sunday afternoon. So everybody should go on Facebook and add the Cultural Connections Committee page and then find out more information about that, because it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Thank you. Anyone else? And just want to apologize to the public. We were locked out of City Hall. That's why we started a little late. No need for non-public?
I would like to move to adjourn.
Okay, motion by Alderwoman Kelly to adjourn the Personnel Committee. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Karen,
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons,
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly said yes. Alderman Cleaver.
Yes.
5 yeas and 0 nays.
Okay, we are adjourned at 7:39 PM. Good night, everyone. See you tomorrow.
Good night.